Hey, this is Sasha, and I want to thank you so much for joining me in our Options Mastery Diagonals course. Now, welcome to the course. This is a quick introduction. I just want to share with you some of the things that we're going to be covering, and then we're going to start diving deep into the material. So I want to really just thank you so much for taking the leap and investing yourself and your time, your money to be a part of this journey through this course. This is going to be a long course, and I know for some people that throws them off, but the good news is it's going to be detailed. So as we get into the course material, we're going to go through a big part of just the core education and then also get into trade examples. And my main focus with this course is to really share with you the ins and outs of trading diagonals. How would I set up diagonal trades? How would I do trade examples? How would I go ahead and tweak those positions or make adjustments? So the goal is not just to show you winning trades, because of course I could just put trades on, and if they don't work out, we could delete them and then put on better trades that look better for video. But the point really is to see losing trades. When you see losing trades, you get an idea of what you would do when things go against you. Now, that's really my main goal, is to show you what you could do when things go against you, but also to give you that good foundation in diagonals. The way that I trade may be different than the way that you trade. If you're a mom with 6 kids at home, you might need to trade a little differently than a 20-year-old who's just out of college that's not worried about losing their initial investments, because you've got a lot of time left for your building up your retirement. So just understand that your personal situation might be different. Some strategies you may like a little more than others, or the way that things are set up a little different. But the goal is really just to go ahead and set up consistent trades time and time again. Once that 30-day comes around in the option trade, you go ahead and put another one on. Once the next 30 days, you go ahead and put the next one on. So you'll want to keep doing that time and time again to build consistency. And if you see that, hey, things are moving a little bit more against me, maybe I need a little more negative delta, or maybe I need to tweak for the negative risk. So that's what I'm going to share with you in this course, is how to work with diagonals to modify them, manipulate them, and set them up for your own personal risk tolerance. We've got a lot of ground to cover. We've got a lot of core foundation material. And the good news is now with a lot of the new recording things that I'm able to do, I've broken up the videos into smaller chunks and sections. So you could always just go to that chunk and section and rewatch those things compared to some of the older options mastery videos that I've started in the past. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you kind of some of the things that we're going to go over here in detail. But again, thank you so much for joining me in this course. I know that we're going to learn quite a lot and go through a lot of material together. So please be patient. Don't think that this is a course that you could just go through in 1 or 2 sittings. You're going to have to go back through it probably multiple times over the next couple of weeks and maybe even the month. And as you continue this progress, go to your trading platform, go in and play around with some of the trades, play around with the setups, follow along as you're doing the video. Don't be watching a movie as you're, taking this course, or turn off the TV, turn off your cell phone, be focused, so that way you can really get the most out of it. All right, so to get things started, I want to share with you some of the topics and core things that we'll cover. And we're going to start initially with just introduction to the options diagonals course, which is the video that we're in. And all these videos here that I'm mentioning here, like the business of trading diagonals, will be coming up next. Some of these things, we're going to go ahead and add even more modules to it in the future if needed. So if you have things that you feel are missing, let me know, and we'll go ahead and add more things to it, so this course could continue to expand and make sure that you continue to learn more and more from it. We'll go ahead and cover kind of portfolio breakdown, how and where do diagonals fit into a portfolio. We'll look at a $20,000 portfolio example using diagonals. Again, you could just ramp it up if you have a larger portfolio. We'll look at how a calendar is similar to a diagonal and diagonal basics and how it's constructed. We'll check out puts versus calls using diagonals. And then we'll get into kind of variations of different diagonals, like a single, a double, a short, long, more skewed. So we'll look at different kinds of things like that, different trade variations of diagonals. We'll look at selling diagonals versus buying diagonals and the risks involved. We'll look at understanding the Greeks when trading diagonals. We've got a lot of stuff on delta, gamma, theta, and vega. So it's very detailed. I've got like 4 or 5 videos just on the Greeks to make sure you really got it. And if you understand the delta already, great, then just move on. But I just want to make sure that things were really crisp and in detail for those of you that are struggling with these Greeks. Then we'll also get into the big picture of how they work together. We'll look at that stuff on screen. We'll look at a delta neutral diagonal setup. We'll look at losing money on diagonals, and you don't know why. Well, this video will explain a little bit more. We'll look at the volatility advantage to trading diagonals and why diagonals are great, even if you expect a pullback, and there's a few examples regarding that. Then we'll get into kind of why diagonals are the most flexible strategy, setting up a neutral diagonal, and how much rotation should you give your diagonal? You know, how much angle should it have? Diagonals versus verticals, which one's better? How about versus an iron condor? When would you do one versus the other? And we'll look at that on screen. How a double diagonal setup can be negative or positive vega. You know, a lot of people think diagonals are basically positive vega, but they can actually be negative vega. I'll show you how here in this video. We'll look at finding good diagonal trading vehicles as well. And then we'll get into trading diagonals on cheap versus expensive stocks, creating hybrid diagonals and maybe creative diagonal strategies. This one, you know, we're getting into it a little bit here as I continue and finish up a couple of additional videos because this is a little more advanced. And then starting a diagonal position when the VIX is low. We'll look at starting a diagonal position when the VIX is high. We'll look at when do short duration versus long duration diagonals. How long should you hold on to your diagonal trade? How to plan and create a diagonal trade. And after we do some of these initial plannings, then we'll get into managing and adjusting a diagonal trade. Where do you do it? Where would you take that adjustment? Adjustment ideas with diagonals and how to think about adjustments. How to think about your max profit and losses after adjustment. Strategy idea for long diagonals, long portfolio investments, and then we'll look at some trade examples like setting up a long portfolio diagonal spread on Starbucks. Then we'll look at another example with McDonald's, which would be without protection. We'll look at JP Morgan, also without protection. And then we'll look at maybe a short portfolio diagonal strategy on Home Depot. We'll look at a strategy idea. This is basically showing you another diagonal strategy where long diagonal with protection. How do you put on a diagonal strategy, but you do it with protection? Let's say you're worried about downside movements. We'll look at that in SPY, long diagonal with protection on the SPY during bearish markets. And then we'll look at a double diagonal strategy for non-directional income. So we'll look at that example on Disney and on Russell. And then finally, this last little bit, we'll look at short-term diagonals for protecting your portfolio. And there's an example there on the SPY. We'll look at another short-term non-directional weekly diagonal trade. And that'll be on the Russell, and then some final tips on diagonals, and we'll sign out. All right, so those are the key topics that we'll cover in this course. And again, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Truly, we're going to get in this course in great detail. There's going to be a lot of material to learn, so be patient as we go through the material. Some things you might hear 2 to 4 times, and that's just really to emphasize a point, but also say it maybe a different way. So that way also it gets into your mind to remember these concepts. You know, with repetition, saying it multiple times, it should help you to remember these things. So just be patient to continue to work through the material, hear things multiple times, and maybe the first version or variation didn't really hit you. Maybe the second one will be better, or the third one, or the fourth one. So hopefully by the time you finish and go through this whole course, you'll really have a good foundation and grasp. And by the time you have a good foundation and grasp, seeing trade examples and that kind of thing, then you'll need to be able to put some of your own trades on. And if you need help with that, feel free to reach out through the coaching program there. I have coaching one-on-one that I can do, and even some mentorship that we can work with you specifically on your personal needs and your personal risk tolerance. Anyways, with that being said, thanks again for joining me in this course. Thanks for purchasing it. Thanks for supporting our team. Thanks for dedicating your time and knowledge and investing with me. And really, I think you'll get quite a lot from this course and material. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Let's get started. When you're ready, go ahead, hit play on the next video, and we'll continue working through this course, going through the basics and then trade examples towards the end.